Hello, and welcome to another week at the bungalow. So we're finishing off, or near completing, First Fix Electrics this week. Not the most riveting of views, but nevertheless absolutely vital as far as the project is concerned and moving it forward. We need to get all the cables in place so we can finish things like the insulation, which you've seen us start on previous videos. But we need to get the cabling out of the way so we can start the plasterboarding and move on to something slightly more visually entertaining. So, start of the day, rearranging the cables, get them onto the cable reel so that we can pull them off easily. This is a lighting circuit going to the bathroom. So we're doing pretty much box standard. We've got a ring main going round downstairs, kitchen, upstairs, and then we've got two lighting circuits as far as the actual house is concerned, and upstairs and down. The downstairs is split into kitchen separately from the rest of the downstairs, because obviously you've got the highest loads going in the kitchen. There'll be other circuits. We've got outside lighting and things like electric gates out the front. We're also going to put in electric car charging. So all these will just be separate runs, straight runs from the consumer unit to certain things. But these are the big sort of household efforts, so to speak. So we're in the bathroom and labelling up the cables, so each of the ends are labelled up. So there's as far as the lighting is concerned, a couple of power ones and then a switch. The sockets are a bit different. They're all just power for obvious reasons, no switching, but the lighting circuits get slightly more complicated when it comes to things like certainly the double switching, or in which case what we've got here is the triple switching, which is where you've got the switch downstairs, switch upstairs, and they sort of switch between for like landing or hallway lighting. And then we've got exactly the same on the back of the house with the lights that you saw us putting in on a previous video. Those can be switched from either of the upstairs top two bedrooms, but also can be switched from downstairs. So we've got some triple switching going in there, which is the triple and earth cables that need to be pulled through. So this is pretty well laced with cables. We're sitting at around about, I think, something close to about 600-700 meters so far of lighting and power cable. It's pretty laborious, you know. It's not the most, like I say, it's not the most exciting of views, but nevertheless imperative. So I'm trying to keep all the power cables together without having to drill any more holes through those joists. When it comes to putting in, we've got aerials, cables going to all of the bedrooms as well, so, and two of the living rooms. These I'm running separately, so they've got their own separate holes drilled to keep the aerial cables away from the power cables, just in case there's any sort of interference. Not entirely sure. I've sort of read both ways, where yes it matters or no it doesn't matter. So we're keeping safe and keeping them clear from each other. But once the cable's pulled through, it's then tacked into place with the cable clips. I don't think it's necessarily vital, but I'm hoping it'll make life easier for putting the insulation in. When we get to that stage, there's enough other stuff to be insulating around, so if we can keep the cables as tidy as possible, it just means we're not worrying about that too much. And there again, once again, just taping the cables together where they come through the light fittings, and you see you've got the two power cables and then a switch cable. These get rolled up out of the way at the moment, but when the plasterboard goes in, they'll be poked through the hole in the plasterboard. Back above the kitchen, where most of the cabling is going on, we've got the consumer unit in the front room, which is where all the power cables are running back to. Because we've got the meter being moved to the outside wall in the box that you saw rendered around. Got a hole to dig around that to expose the cable so the electrical company can come in and move the meter and disconnect and reconnect the cables. But pretty much lacing the cable across the beams, through the joists, and then tacking it into place where it runs against other things. Just to try and stop any movement. And here's, well, writing on the cables, labelling them up. So this is the one I'm talking about. This is sort of got switching here for, well, pretty much everything. The island in the middle of the room, above the table, the main lights in the kitchen, and then we've also got a cable that will be switching the downlighters on the outside of the house. So all of that's piling down this wall and into this one switch. These all get covered up by the white trunking before the plasterer comes along. But tacking them into place, like I say, so that they're not moving around, and we keep it as tidy as possible. I don't always go in first time. Especially when there's that amount of cables. And second time lucky. Back to the plans that we made last week with Claire as to where light fittings are going. So we're getting the downlighters or spotlights in the, or the cabling for those in the kitchen. These are dotted around at the standard fittings for kitchen, 1 per metre squared I think it is, and then outside of the kitchen 1 every 1.5 metres squared. Meaning we've got about a dozen going in, even in this relatively small space. So there's a bit of play on the cables just in case. It gives us the ability to move them around as and when the plasterboard goes up, and we can see actually where they are. But we're going 700 out from the walls, 700 out from the corners. It's all pretty sort of standard stuff that you can find on the internet with regards to placing the spotlights. They're going to be the sort that are buried in the ceiling, so we actually plaster the fittings in. So then all you see is just the bulb rather than having the whites around with this, as were retrofitted ones. Here's the usual problem, we've got loads of cables going through this point and threading them through. So certain areas of the upstairs flooring has been left exposed so we can see what we're up to. These cables either get clipped to the side or I'm going to cable tie them together so they stay all together. But you can see we're getting quite a bunch of cable heading through all the joists now. These are the placements for the couple of spotlights in the hallway. So they're marked out as far as arrows on the joist as to which way they head either side with their measurement, and then we'll be transferring that onto the plasterboards and cutting the holes when we put the plasterboard up. Once again, bit of slack being left there just in case we have a bit of movement on the light. And these can all be trimmed down after the event. As much as buying the cabling seems really expensive when you are at 50 quid a reel, in the whole grand scheme of things it's relatively inexpensive, and so a bit of extra play here can save running a whole new run or causing issues once plasterboard's up and in place if you've just got that extra bit of movement. So that's what I tend to do. And then these get rolled up out of the way so we're not banging our heads on them. So some finished shots. Just waiting for its trunking, so there's all sorts of odd jobs to be done. Kitchen wall switching for fridge, freezer and ovens. Pretty intense in the kitchen with regards to the cabling. So like I say, those ones bunched together are heading off to the consumer unit. They'll get zip tied together and then pinned against the joist. And there you can see the aerial cables as well running alongside. Here we've got a wall coming down, so we've got a lot of switches going in the wall. There's also sockets going in for things. So you've got 2 runs there for lighting and for the power. And then trying to keep all the electrical cables away from the hot radiator pipes. Into the hallway, down lighters. Third bedroom. We've got the trunk in there for the power cables and also hot and cold water pipes, central heating, flow and returns. These are all yet to be tested and you'll see that on another video once we get to that stage. But you can see how the cabling runs away as much as possible from the pipes. Here we are upstairs. So we've got the ring main here running through the walls for the bedrooms. We have to avoid a lot of steel at this point because we've got all the support for the ceiling and the roof. So the cables are having to run in the walls, but they're away from the depth of the screws that might come through. Lighting here or switch here for landing and hallway lighting. And of course TV points. So we've got a socket below there, and then cable running up with aerial as well, which will be put in the wall for TV point, marked on the wall, so we know roughly where we're heading, but there's, like I say, a bit of slack there as well. And then a socket below. Bedside socket. And there you can see I started doing the zip tying, so it's just been loosely put around to hold all the cables together. And then we're pinning them out of the way above the hot water pipes. So as I leave you with the last few shots of what we've been up to over the last week or so. As always, we thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.